Two nuclear-armed giants face off, their armies massed along a disputed Himalayan border. The tension is palpable, with both sides unwilling to back down, each move scrutinized by the other. The air crackles with tension, the threat of war hangs heavy. Soldiers stand ready, their eyes scanning the horizon, fingers poised on triggers. The silence is deafening, broken only by the occasional rustle of gear or the distant sound of a helicopter. This is not a scene from a Cold War thriller, but the current reality in the world's most volatile geopolitical hotspot, the India-China border. Here, every movement is a potential spark, every decision a possible catalyst for conflict. Both nations boast over 1 billion citizens, rapidly modernizing militaries, and a shared history steeped in both cooperation and conflict. Their past is a tapestry of alliances and rivalries, moments of unity and periods of intense discord. The stakes could not be higher. A single misstep, a miscalculation, could ignite a conflagration with global consequences. Military commanders huddle over maps, strategizing every possible scenario, while diplomats engage in tense negotiations, each word weighed carefully. The world watches with bated breath as these ancient civilizations, each determined to secure its place in the 21st century, engage in a high-stakes game of geopolitical chess. Analysts dissect every move, every statement, while ordinary citizens in both countries follow the news with a mix of hope and fear. The question is, can they avoid a catastrophic clash? As dawn breaks over the rugged terrain, soldiers patrol the border, ever vigilant. Peace talks continue, with officials striving for a resolution, a symbolic handshake offering a glimmer of hope amidst the uncertainty. To understand the current tensions, we must journey back in time, delving into the intricate history that has shaped the present-day dynamics between these two powerful nations. The India-China border, a labyrinthine tangle of snow-capped peaks and treacherous valleys, has been a source of contention for over half a century. This rugged terrain, with its harsh weather conditions and difficult accessibility, has made the demarcation of boundaries a complex and contentious issue. The 1962 war, a humiliating defeat for India, left deep scars on the national psyche. This conflict not only reshaped the military strategies of both nations, but also sowed seeds of deep mistrust and animosity that continue to influence their interactions to this day. Adding fuel to the fire is the unresolved status of Tibet. The Tibetan issue remains a sensitive and contentious point, with China's annexation of Tibet in 1950, and the subsequent flight of the Dalai Lama to India in 1959, creating a complex web of political and cultural tensions. India's spiritual connection to the region, coupled with China's firm grip on what it considers an integral part of its territory, adds another layer of complexity to the relationship. The presence of Tibetan refugees in India and the ongoing struggle for Tibetan autonomy continue to be significant points of friction. Decades of mistrust and unresolved grievances have created a tinderbox where even a minor incident could spark a major confrontation. The frequent border standoffs, military drills, and diplomatic skirmishes are a testament to the fragile and volatile nature of this relationship. Both nations, with their growing economic and military might, are constantly maneuvering for strategic advantage, making the prospect of lasting peace seem ever elusive. Nestled high in the Himalayas lies the tiny kingdom of Bhutan, a peaceful nation caught in the crosshairs of the India-China rivalry. Bhutan's strategic location, bordering both giants, makes it a pawn in a much larger game. While officially neutral, Bhutan shares close ties with India, relying on its larger neighbor for defense and security. China, however, has been increasingly assertive in its claims on Bhutanese territory, further inflaming tensions with India. Bhutan, a small nation with much to lose, finds itself walking a diplomatic tightrope, desperate to avoid being crushed between two titans. China's recent actions along the border have raised alarm bells in New Delhi and beyond. From building infrastructure at a rapid pace to conducting military exercises, China appears to be tightening its grip on the disputed territories. This assertive posture is part of a larger pattern of Chinese expansionism in the region. China's Belt and Road Initiative, a massive infrastructure project spanning continents, has raised concerns about Beijing's ultimate ambitions. India, wary of China's growing economic and military might, sees these moves as a strategic encirclement, a deliberate attempt to contain its rise. The Tiger's response: India's options in a tightening net. Faced with an increasingly assertive China, India faces a difficult dilemma. Direct confrontation carries the risk of a catastrophic war, while inaction could be perceived as weakness. India has responded with a mix of military posturing and diplomatic maneuvering. India has strengthened its military presence along the border, modernizing its armed forces and conducting high-altitude exercises. Diplomatically, India has sought to strengthen ties with like-minded nations like the United States, Japan, and Australia, forming a strategic counterweight to China's growing influence. Beyond the Himalayas, the global stakes of a regional conflict. The India-China rivalry extends far beyond the Himalayas. As two of the world's fastest-growing economies and rising global powers, their actions have profound implications for the international order. A war between India and China would be a disaster, not only for the two nations, but for the entire world. It would disrupt global trade, destabilize the region, and could even draw in other major powers, escalating into a wider conflict. The international community has a vested interest in preventing such a scenario. The powder keg flashpoints and potential triggers. Several potential flashpoints along the disputed border could ignite a larger conflict. The Doklam Plateau, where Indian and Chinese troops faced off in a tense standoff in 2017, remains a volatile area. The Galwan Valley, the site of a deadly clash in 2020, is another potential trigger. Miscalculation, misperception, or an accident in these highly militarized zones could spiral out of control, leading to an unintended escalation. The risk of conflict remains high, and the situation requires careful diplomacy and restraint from both sides. The fog of war. Miscalculation and the path to conflict. History is replete with examples of wars that began with miscalculations and misunderstandings. In the current climate of mistrust and suspicion, the fog of war hangs heavy over the Himalayas. A minor incident, if misinterpreted or mishandled, could escalate rapidly. The lack of clear communication channels between the two militaries further increases the risk of accidental conflict. Avoiding such a scenario requires clear communication, confidence-building measures, and a willingness to de-escalate tensions. A world on edge. The international response to a Sino-Indian war. The world holds its breath, watching the unfolding drama in the Himalayas with a mixture of fascination and fear. A war between India and China would be a global catastrophe, disrupting trade, triggering a humanitarian crisis, and potentially drawing in other major powers. The international community, led by the United States, must use all its diplomatic leverage to prevent such an outcome. This includes facilitating dialogue between India and China, urging restraint, and working to resolve the underlying border dispute. The future of the dragon and the tiger conflict or coexistence, the future of Asia and indeed the world hinges on the choices that India and China make in the coming years. These two nations, with their rich histories and burgeoning economies, stand at a crossroads. Their decisions will shape not only their own destinies, but also the global landscape. Will they succumb to the siren song of nationalism and militarism, or will they find a way to coexist peacefully? The stakes are incredibly high. National pride and historical grievances could easily lead to a path of conflict, but there is also a strong desire for peace and prosperity that could guide them towards cooperation. The path forward is fraught with challenges, but the alternative is too terrifying to contemplate. Border disputes and geopolitical tensions add layers of complexity to their relationship. Yet, the potential for collaboration in areas like trade, technology, and environmental sustainability offers a glimmer of hope. The world watches, hoping that wisdom and diplomacy will prevail, allowing these two giants to navigate their differences. International communities and global leaders are keenly observing, offering mediation and support to foster dialogue and understanding. allowing the dragon and the tiger to share the Asian century, not as rivals locked in a deadly embrace, but as partners in progress. Cultural exchanges and joint ventures in infrastructure and technology could pave the way for a new era of mutual respect and shared growth, but as partners in progress. By focusing on common goals and shared interests, India and China have the opportunity to lead Asia into a future of unprecedented prosperity and stability. The choice is theirs, and the world waits with bated breath.